Hello everyone, welcome to VYAPT Growth Series. It was a time when health was limited to physical health of our body and mental health was a taboo. In last 2 decades, we have seen the narrative changing and more people are talking about mental health. It's not that it never existed, but it's about our awareness towards mental health has increased. As we see progressive changes in our lifestyle and work style, it becomes even more important to address our mental health conditions. Growth of an individual, society, organization, and nation vividly depends on mental health conditions. And today, we are going to address mental health issues with our expert Kamna Chhibber. Kamna is head of mental health at Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences, Fortis Healthcare, with over a decade of experience. Kamna, welcome to VYAPT Growth Series.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this platform and to talk about mental health today.
So my first curiosity is, Kamna, how do you see the increase in awareness of mental health care in India, both in preventive as well as curative forms? And what are the major causes of increasing case of depression and other ailments related to mental health?
So it's a very loaded question, if I may say so, only because I think there are so many aspects which relate to mental health which can be covered in both of these aspects. I think mental health related problems in general have always been prevalent, like you were also talking about in your, when you were introducing me and the topic for today. Mental health problems have always been there. It's not that they were non-existent previously and they have suddenly emerged. It's just that for a lot of people, one, the understanding of what mental health and mental health related illnesses are was not necessarily there. People could not define what it means to be depressed or what it means to have an anxiety disorder, or what, say, schizophrenia is, or what a bipolar disorder is. And some of these terms have now come into our interactions thanks to a lot of coverage which is given by the media, thanks to a lot of celebrities who've been coming forth to talk about their experiences, a lot of work which is being done by professionals to put mental health onto the forefront, to keep on trying to create more resources and awareness programs, the government's efforts to try and educate people and to insist that mental health needs to become a priority across different organizations, across different institutes. And what has happened over the years, I feel, is that yes, mental health awareness has increased. People are far more aware of the fact that mental health is an important concern and they need to be willing to talk about mental health related aspects and issues. What they also understand is that mental health illnesses do require treatment, yet there is still a lot of there are still a lot of gaps which exist. So for instance, we still have a lot of stigma which is associated with mental health related problems. People still harbor a lot of myths within their minds where they may believe that people who have mental health illnesses would be absolutely dysfunctional. They can't perform their regular roles, regular chores. A lot of people assume that all individuals who have mental health problems would either be extremely violent or be involved in violent, aggressive behavior. A lot of people assume that children and adolescents can't have mental health related problems. And then there are also those who would think that a mental health problem cannot occur to me. It would only happen to someone if they were, say, coming from either an impoverished background or they don't have support systems. People don't realize that mental health illnesses like physical health related concerns also have a very strong biological component. A lot of them occur because of neurotransmitter imbalances. And when there is an environmental stressor or when there are life situations which could be difficult experiences or relational issues which exist for an individual, those imbalances can get triggered, or sometimes those imbalances occur even spontaneously. I think what has also happened in recent times and which is contributing towards more identification of mental health concerns is this level of awareness. And if you look at it from an epidemiological perspective, the numbers may not have moved really that much, honestly, but many more people are coming forward to say and accept that I do have a mental health concern, I need help and support. A lot of them now try to reach out to experts, to groups, on helplines, on different portals, and they do try to find ways of being able to take care of their own selves. That certainly has happened. But I also believe that somewhere our life our lifestyle is contributing to increasing number of mental health concerns. Uh, we all stay exceptionally busy. Work-life balance is not necessarily a norm. Most of us, end up prioritizing work to a very, very large extent. And the reason for that is, of course, it's not because you may always love your work alone, but there is also the pressure to perform, because if you're not performing, there is this fear that, okay, what if I lose the job? How will I make sure that, my house is running, I'm being able to take care of my roles and responsibilities? You know that the population is very large. Job opportunities a lot of time are not as many. To be able to keep continuing your life and lifestyle the way it is, you need to stay on top of things. And so those pressures are very much there. And then there has been a lot of, a lot of issues which emerge because our social networks are also shrinking. So whereas, yes, people are more social, that they may have a lot of friends or acquaintances whom they may meet, or co-workers whom they may hang out with, but relations where you would have very close associations have diminished. So the nuclearization of the families, the fact that you don't have your relatives staying very close by. So you can't just suddenly pop over to, the neighboring house and be like, I've had this really hard day today. You may have to think twice before you can really unload your stressors and discuss with someone or gain another perspective. So all of these things also build up and contribute to challenges with mental health. So some of these aspects, I think, really do contribute towards why we are seeing this shift towards more and more people talking about how they feel their mental health does get compromised. And then there are various social issues which keep on coming up regularly, which are also contributing towards it, I would say.
So a lot of insights about it for an individual, but let's talk about an organization now. So when we talk about the growth in the organization, we have seen a lot of initiatives in the recent past with some incredible work in diversity and inclusion. Do you see mental health becoming one of the fundamental indicators for the growth of organizations in coming future?
I absolutely do so, and I think this is an aspect which a lot of organizations are recognizing and are also trying to cater for. So if you look at organizations like Microsoft, like the Deloitte, if you look at the Googles, and these are the big ones that I'm talking about, but there are also a lot of smaller mid-sized organizations which are working very, very hard on taking care of the mental well-being of their employees. And the question to ask yourself is that why would someone do that? One, because if you were to look at research and you look at a lot of surveys which have been conducted across the world in different organizations, it has always been seen that one of the major things that employees look for is what is my organization doing to promote my health, my well-being, and providing me opportunities for growth. And my growth is contingent upon how I'm feeling, and because what I can do is dependent upon how I feel, and it's all very much interlinked. And so a lot of times surveys have revealed that close to 70 or 80% employees actually want mental health to be a very, very prominent area that an organization looks at. And again, research has clearly pointed out that for every single dollar that an organization spends on mental health, they get returns worth about $4. So that's a very, very big indicator suggesting that mental health outcomes need to become a strategic aspect that the organizations need to focus on. Typically, if you look at it from a historical perspective, whenever people talk about health, it automatically gets synonymous with safety. We have typically looked at health being ensuring that there are no injuries at the workplace, that if someone is having a physical health concern, you try to work on that. Mental health has not been given that kind of space. But for organizations to be able to pivot towards success and to ensure that their employees are more connected, have a psychological engagement to the organization, and not just the physical contracts that you sign which bound you to certain outcomes or deliverables, to ensure that there is that psychological contracting, it's very important for the organization to be invested in the employee also. And that the best way to do that is to look at their well-being, to look at their mental health. And there are some very, very easy ways to do that, and of course there are the more higher end, more complicated ways in which organizations can support that. But taking steps consistently in that direction, I believe, is going to be the best way in the coming few years where organizations can really pivot towards success.
So from your views, we have our third curiosity, which comes from your views only. So do you see an increase in the mental health care workforce through various employment opportunities to meet the demands of increasing mental health cases in India and even outside?
I think are there more institutes which are trying to uh, educate, train, and equip people to become mental health care practitioners? The answer is yes. Are those sufficient to take care of the gaps which exist? The answer is no. So there is a lot of scope for us to be able to work towards building an adequate workforce which will be able to take care of the mental health needs of the population. And it's very important to understand that we are lagging way behind. If you look at estimates which have been given by the WHO, and these are quite a few years old, right? The gaps between the number of psychiatrists available and what is required by the country were almost at more than 200%. The gap in the number of psychologists was more than about 300%. Now, these are also very old statistics. Those numbers may well have changed because the population has grown many-fold during these interim years. If you look at it, worldwide, the number of psychiatrists available per 100,000 is about 6.6. In India, it's about 0.3, if I'm not incorrect. Very less. Similarly, the psychiatric beds which are available is about 0.04 per 100,000. Worldwide, the number is much larger. So we have a lot of gaps which are there in the existing services which are available. And again, if you look at statistics, the latest mental health survey which was conducted in 2015-16 very clearly said that only 10% of those who require mental health services are actually seeking help. And yet, most practitioners are actually quite saturated with work, right? And so you can imagine that we may all be feeling overwhelmed, that we are working with a lot of clients. We're doing a lot in our spaces, whether it's social media, whether it's directly within the communities, whether it is with organizations, NGOs, schools. We may be feeling that we're doing a lot, but that lot is only filling up about 10% of the bucket. There is still 90% to go, and there aren't too many more of mental health practitioners who are going to be able to fill that gap. So there is an enormous opportunity, enormous space where mental health, where people can look at being in the mental health space, where people can become experts in the mental health space, and they need to consider that and they need to look at that. And at the same time, I believe very strongly that we can't keep waiting for that gap to get bridged, right? We will have to be very innovative also. And for those people who are already in the field, we need to start thinking of more creative, innovative ways in which we can reach out to larger segments of the population and provide them the required mental health services as well.
So you talked about that there is an opportunity for around 10x growth in the mental health care exports in India. If people are saturated with 10% of the work, then remaining 90% of the people require those many number of healthcare workers or experts in this particular domain.
Yes, absolutely.
Very profound perspectives, Kamna. So my last question is pertaining to something about your professional life as well as your personal life. So you are a very passionate professional. So would you like to probably share something about your passion for treating mental health conditions?
Well, this passion perhaps came in over a period of time. It's developed, it's evolved over time. I didn't start with an understanding of mental health or psychology. I was studying in an era when psychology was not even taught in my school. And my only introduction to mental health was actually through the books that I read. And I belong to a family where reading is a very integral aspect of growing up. And we've grown up surrounded with books, and I used to read a lot. And the spirit of doing and contributing to the community was always something which was emphasized right from my great grandparents to my grandparents, my parents. It's been something that has always been a part of our upbringing and our way of approaching community and the work that we do within the community. And somewhere along the way, What also happened was when I was reading, I started looking at mental health. There was a Sydney Sheldon novel, which was the first book that I actually read, which is called Tell Me Your Dreams, which talked about multiple personality disorder, and that kind of stayed with me. And then of course I read a lot of other books where mental health was talked about in different ways. And when I was coming towards my college years and I was speaking to some family friends, they spoke of how psychology is this new field, it's coming in, it's something that you could consider. Why go for typical courses in your bachelor's level and then try to figure out what you want to do for masters? Take up this, it's a very interesting field. And it kind of took me back to those times when I was reading about mental health, and I said, yeah, sounds pretty interesting, let's just get into it. And I entered my first year of college, and I think I was just completely engaged. As soon as I got involved in the curriculum, I was very, very lucky to have wonderful professors who were so engaging and completely involved me in the subject and gave such a wonderful insight into what all the potentials and possibilities are. I came across the right mentors during my internships, and that guidance that I was able to get when I was a younger person. I think there were also much fewer people who were trying to enter the field at that stage, because this is about 18 years, 19 years ago now. So the number of people who were looking at courses in psychology was much fewer at that time. So the opportunities that you got to experience, to intern, to get mentored, were far many. The exposure was enormous. And so there was so much that one could do, and one actually was able to do that. The passion just got ignited, and it stayed like that. And I think the one thing which keeps us going is the fact that no day is the same day. Even when you're working with clients week after week, you do realize that their lives are not static. There is so much which is evolving, so much which is happening, and it comes with a sense of responsibility. And I think this is the best way in which one is being able to do something within the community and working towards making mental health a priority for all. I think it is a need. It's such a major need right now that that's what keeps my passion going alive, because I feel that the more I'm doing, the lesser it is. It's like a bucket which just does not get filled at all. There's more and more space to keep doing, whether it is through social media, whether it's by writing, whether it is by campaigning, whether it is working with clients, or creating awareness and doing workshops with schools or organizations. The more you do, the lesser it feels, because you keep on finding more and more scope to keep talking about mental health. And I think that's been something that's just kept me going all along now.
So these were the views of Kamna. In nutshell, all the decisions we make reflects an enormous amount of our mental health conditions, and decisions shapes our lives. And do you know that we make dozens of decisions every day? So take good care of yourself. Don't hesitate to reach out in case you need any help. And always remember that the world starts with you. Thank you, Kamna, for being with us in our growth series. This was truly instilling hope.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It was a real pleasure to be here with you today and to talk about mental health. Thank you.